just started the recording.
Okay.
All right, so like like we've been talking, I want to talk to you about the MLB season for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, originally I think we wanted to talk about like the Cubs, and how the season preview and what the new management was going to look like with I believe we have a new manager as well in Ross, right?
Yes, sir. David
And
Ross.
yeah, and this was going to be his first season. Well, it is going to be his first season as the Cubs manager, but you know,
I know.
with
Yeah,
everything that's happening, yeah, we weren't able to talk about that. But yeah, the other thing we were going to cover was the Astros, aka the Trash Tros, scandal that happened. So let's just quickly start talking about the MLB season first. With everything that's going on, obviously, sports have been canceled. NBA is looking for a way to come back, and so what's Major League Baseball doing to potentially come back as soon as possible?
Sure. So there are many rumors of how they just want to start baseball in July, and then they'll cut the first 3 months of the season. So instead of a 6 month season, it'll only be a 3 month season. So it'll go from July to obviously the postseason, October. I think that's a really good way to handle it. Originally, what they wanted to do was they wanted to start off baseball games with empty ballparks, but I don't think that would really make sense in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's interesting because the empty ballparks, like you say, that's an interesting concept because that is one thing I heard MLB was considering. I don't know about that one because obviously crowd is a huge factor for baseball games.
Of
Like
course.
the Korean baseball team uh, is doing baseball games without a crowd, and they have like uh, some like uh, paintings of a crowd in the
Hmm.
stands, so it looks like there's a crowd, and like they have some like noises coming from the PA box, which makes it seem like there's a crowd, but there's no crowd.
I'm going to cut you off, but there was one crowdless game about 5 years ago, and it was actually against the Baltimore Orioles, against the Chicago White Sox, and the Baltimore Orioles actually defeated them. And the reason why it was a empty ballpark during that game was because I think it was due to civil unrest in Baltimore following the death of Freddie Gray, who was an African
Right,
American man.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, they could look to do something similar. And like you said, earlier about the 3 month season, it would basically be like if there was like a shortened season due to like a lockout, like I think there's how many lockouts have there been throughout MLB's history?
There was one in the 90s. I think they didn't play a World Series because they went on strike.
Right.
Yeah, it could have been the early to mid 90s.
Yeah.
Um, but other than that, I don't recall it ever happening, at least not in my lifetime.
Yeah, so this would be, I guess, like the first time like a shortened season happened since the late 90s, I believe.
You know, okay, this is a little random, but I was also reading they were going to do some rumors of how, how MLB ballparks have the Jumbotron screens and all of that?
Yeah.
Well, especially the Cubs, they were going to have a free like Zoom meeting where you could click on it and watch the game from there. But I think that would be a really bad idea because you know how people can be really inappropriate and rude.
Yeah, that's true. That doesn't seem like a great idea. You don't know with these fans.
Hmm. I know. It's like next thing you'll see is a naked little kid up on the screen.
Yeah. And as for this, like obviously the season was supposed to begin like late March, and now the teams have some time before the season starts, the shortened version. Do you think this shortening of the MLB season hurts the Cubs, or does it help them, you think?
I think it could help them. Last year, the Cubs struggled with a lot of injuries with Wilson Contreras, Anthony Rizzo, especially Jason Hayward, and sometimes taking a break a little bit longer than 5 months can help give everyone's energy back, but that doesn't always necessarily guarantee, well, because in 2019, the Chicago Cubs picked up the World Series champion closing pitcher Craig Kimbrell. He hasn't pitched since the 2018 World Series, and the Cubs got him during the 2019 mid-season. And what happened was he was not his ace.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So yeah, that's definitely something. I mean, it's a pretty talented roster still, and with the new manager, they can strike lightning in a bottle and maybe take it all the way for a World Series.
Sure. They definitely have the talent for it. They definitely need to clean up that bullpen, though. And with this longer break, it can definitely give the Cubs longer time with the staff and coaches to collect meetings and plans of seeing what they want to do with their roster and all of that.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. I mean, it should be helping other teams too, but yeah, definitely the more injury-prone teams. Shorter time means if a team gets momentum a little faster, like they
Right.
could take it all the way to the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who do you think could be a contender for the World Series this year, other than the Cubs?
Yankees for the
Oh yeah,
American League.
Yankees.
Absolutely. I really hate to say this, but I really think the Dodgers can have another shot at it because they still have a young, really talented team, especially with Cody Bellinger and Justin Turner. I think they're one of the two best sluggers on that team. Also for the National League, I don't think the Nationals will go back because they lost one of their best players, Anthony Rendon, who went to the Angels. As a matter of fact, that is where Joe Madden is coaching now.
Oh, he's coaching at
Anaheim.
Anaheim. Oh, I actually didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. They could have a really good shot this year, especially for the American League. They have that amazing Japanese starting pitcher and outfielder, Shohei Ohtani. He can throw over 97 miles an hour, and he's also a slugger, too. And the team also has Tommy La Stella, the former Cub, who was also an All-Star in 2019. And they have obviously Mike Trout, who can take this team a long way, depending on how well it turns out.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Definitely a good pickup for them, and that's an arm right there, like 97. Whew.
Yeah, that's pretty
That's crazy.
fast.
Yeah, and okay, I just before we go to the Astros controversy, I wanted to ask this random question I just remembered.
Okay.
Now, let's say obviously the season resumes, and they have like 3 months before the World Series or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say the stay-at-home orders kind of calm down and stuff. Would you be comfortable enough to attend a Cubs game?
Yes, I would. I still think MLB, especially the Cubs, should make a certain restriction of how many people can be at the ballpark. Maybe not having a full house right away, just limit the amount of fans that are allowed to go in there. Maybe half so they can spread out a little bit. Who knows?
And do you want any social distancing, like 6 feet apart, or masks or something like that? Is that something you want?
Maybe the workers. I don't think it would be very realistic for the fans to have masks in there, especially. I mean, are you going to have all the staff trying to find like half of 40,000, which would be like 20,000 people to put on masks? It would be a huge shit show. But I think with the staff, that would be a lot more realistic.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's definitely interesting to hear people's opinion on if they would be comfortable enough to go out to these public gatherings. And that makes sense, like maybe gradually increasing the size, not going for the 40,000 right away. That makes sense. 'Cause, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like like you, I kind of miss going out now to like movies and stuff. I'm missing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely interesting. All right, so let's talk about this topic here. I'm kind of excited to cover this because I want to get your opinion on this. The Houston Astros. So for the people who don't know and don't understand, like why they're being called out, can you kind of briefly tell us what the controversy is all about with their World Series win and just your overall opinion on it?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start from the beginning. The Astros were guilty of sign stealing along with using cameras and beepers and also signs from each player in the dugout, such as banging on trash cans. There was even some clear evidence of the Astros second baseman using a buzzer on his chest, and it would buzz to inform what kind of pitch was coming. And it all started during the 2017 season. Maybe not even just the World Series. It could have been the entire playoffs, maybe the entire season. Who knows? And the point being is, I think MLB did a really poor job at responding to the situation, because why would they respond to it 2 years later instead of right after this scandal?
That's interesting. So, you know, I'm a pretty, uh, casual baseball fan, so I don't clearly understand like what sign stealing meant until like the video I showed you that kind of talked about it. So, can you tell the people how exactly the banging of the trash cans and the buzzers would help the players understand what pitch was coming and all? Can you tell them what that meant? That
Yeah,
means?
absolutely. I can give a perfect example. Um, Maybe a certain rhythm to a tap would indicate what sort of pitch was coming. For an example, three taps like that would mean a four-seamer, which is a fastball. And, you know, another beat would indicate a slider. And maybe a would indicate something as a curveball. Like, did you hear those beats?
Yeah, I totally heard that, and I totally get that. Yeah.
Okay. And obviously, these players know the velocity and how fast these pitchers can throw just from experience. So it's really nothing new to them. And it kind of goes to the moral of I would rather pitch to a guy on steroids than pitch to a guy that knows what's coming.
Oh, that's interesting. And I mean that I mean obviously all that happened usually during the Astros home games, and it probably took a lot of work because they would have to probably have a guy looking at the pitchers and then somebody radioing to the guys in the back to bang the trash can or beep the buzzer. Like that's a lot of work to like that's that seems very like uh it's very complicated to do something like that over time and
Yes.
get busted for it.
And one thing too is there's a lot more to it, but when it comes to steroids, like people hating on Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, um, there was even in 2016, I believe, there was a really skinny guy named D. Gordon, and he was tested positive for some type of endurance enhancers and was suspended for 80 games. And but regardless of all of that, they still had the baseball talent. I mean, I guarantee if 1,000 people took steroids and tried to do what these ball players did, they probably would not have succeeded.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying because it's they're already talented. Like Barry Bonds was a talented second or third base kind of guy, but after he took the steroids, the man was just home run after home run. It was crazy.
Yes, he is the home run record holder right now.
Right. And do you
Yep.
think it would have been looked at as even worse, like how we're looking at the Astros, if, let's say, Barry Bonds won a World Series while being on steroids?
Probably not. And I also blame MLB. I mean, after the Astros cheating scandal 2 years later, they fired their manager and general manager. Their manager, AJ Hinks, right? And the players should have been suspended for that. If they would suspend a guy on roids, right, and not be included in the Hall of Fame, how could they not suspend ball players who stole signs with cameras, beepers that knew what pitches were coming and ruined it for the other teams who did not cheat?
Yeah, so it's almost like it goes from like a one person crimes where it's like single person on steroids versus an entire team conspiring and coming together to get this thing going. Multiple people make it like even worse, you know. So yeah, I think I definitely agree with you that MLB handled it very poorly. Like they could have punished them even worse. Like
Maybe
they
strip
could have.
them from, sorry to cut you off,
Yeah, go ahead.
but people are saying the Astros should be stripped of their title. There is one issue with that. In the 2017 World Series, which was the scandal year, right? The Dodgers, who the Astros were playing, the Dodgers lost at home during Game 2 and Game 7. And with that, you can't really prove that the Dodgers would have won regardless of the sign stealing because of that.
Yeah, like that makes sense because they would be down 2-0 if those games, happen and none of the other games happen. So there's a chance they could have still lost even without the sign stealing. But that's the thing, like I think the argument some people might have is, well, they cheated throughout the playoffs. It's not just that one series. It went all the way throughout the regular season through the playoffs.
Right. And throughout the playoffs too, the first round, right, which was the American League Division Series versus the Red Sox and Astros. The Astros won in four games, and the final game was tight. It was 5-4. And then once they reached the Yankees, that was incredible. And it was also disappointing at the same time because the Astros really cost the former Yankees manager, Joe Girardi, his job. And the first two games of the series was in Houston, right? And Houston was up 2-0. They surprisingly, 2 games were the same score. The Astros beat the Yankees 2-1 in both games. And then what happened was at Yankee Stadium, right, when they went back to New York, the Yankees won 3 in a row. Okay. In Game 3, the Yankees won 8-1, and then Game 4, they won 6-4. Game 5, the Yankees won 5-0, which put New York ahead 3-2. And remember, it's best out of 7. Now, when the Yankees went back to Houston, the Yankees lost both of the games and got knocked out.
Right. So, I mean, again, that's kind of messed up, like costing somebody their job. And hey, who knows if they weren't doing the sign stealing those last 2 games, maybe Yankees could have stole one and probably become world champions. And I think it's infuriating that something like this happened. First thing, MLB didn't really punish them that well. And the second thing is, it's almost like they got away with it, and it sets a precedence where like some teams are probably going to look for loopholes in the system and try to exploit it. What do you think about that? Like, do you think more teams are going to look to do something like this, but maybe even more elusively, or do you think this is just like a very rare example? Something like this probably won't happen again.
I think probably something like this won't happen again, especially with the technology these days. It's almost impossible to cheat. If anything, I think it would go back to the steroid era, or maybe even just maybe the game has changed a lot, especially with power. People go to watch the home baseball just to see the home run. So a lot more weightlifting can come into the aspect of it with supplements like creatine and etc. But with the sign stealing, not at all. And what else was I going to say? Oh no, I had something I wanted to say, but it threw me off track.
Something about the Astros?
That's right. In 2017, with the ALCS, right before the World Series in Game 7, the Yankees also did not score. So it also comes into the aspect of just the Yankees hitting didn't show up in that game either. So it kind of goes into that argument as well. And we weren't sure if the Astros also cheated in 2019 because this World Series was incredible against the Washington Nationals. And the Astros lost all of their games at home, and the Nationals lost all of their games at home. And the Nationals beat the Astros in Game 7.
Ah, I see what you're saying. It's interesting. Like again, like with all that happening, do you think personally, like Astros had enough talent to become World Series champions without the sign stealing? Do you think they had enough talent to do that?
Probably not. And I would say 2015 proved that because in 2015, the Astros actually made it to the playoffs and they got defeated by the Royals in
The eventual champions.
yes. And you know what? In 2005, the Astros got crushed by the Chicago White Sox. They got swept. And at that time, the Astros were a National League team. And the year before that, in 2004, I believe the Astros also got beat by the Cardinals. And then the Cardinals went to the World Series, and then they got swept by the Red Sox. But point being is, no, I don't think so. Plus, the Astros second baseman, Jose Altuve, he stole the American League MVP award from Aaron Judge in 2017 that year, which is also really cringy.
Yeah, I don't know how these people sleep or accept these awards without feeling any kind of guilt or remorse.
Yeah.
No honor among thieves.
I know. It's kind of like imagine having to cheat to defeat the Chicago White Sox in today's age.
Oh my God. Come on. And hey, I think you and I would be even more angry if, let's say, the Cubs were the ones who lost due to the sign stealing in the World Series.
Imagine that happening in 2016 against the Indians. That would have been so heartbreaking.
That would be hard. I think there's a chance if that happened, there could be all-out civil war between the cities just for that.
Oh, absolutely. And also to clarify one thing too, teams have been stealing signs for years, and stealing signs is okay. However, using technology to steal signs like the Astros did, that's a whole different thing.
I see what you're saying. Like, but in general, like I feel like you're right though. Like with advanced technology and maybe even more security in the stadiums. I think something like this is definitely not going to happen anytime soon, unless a team gets even more creative.
Right. And I don't know if you're aware of the current Cubs pitcher, Yu Darvish, the filthy pitcher.
Yes.
Yes. So he was striking everyone out since 2013 until he met the Astros in the 2017 World Series. Not a single strikeout in the World Series, I think. And one thing, too, is that in that Game 7 where Darvish was pitching, the Dodgers also had a lot of chances to tie it and get ahead. And, yeah, man, it's very bad.
Yeah, hopefully Yu Darvish gets his ring with the Cubs this season.
Yeah, I know. That would be very exciting.
That would be very, very poetic.
Yeah, I hope I'm answering and meeting all of your questions.
Oh yeah, no, this was some really good information, and I hope the people listening get excited for the upcoming season, hopefully, and realize that cheating is not good, people. Even if it gets you a World Series, never piss off a fan base.
Absolutely. And one thing, too, is in the 2019 playoffs, the Yankees also faced the Houston Astros in the American League Championship Series, so which is the round right before the World Series. And what happened was in Game 6, the Yankees were down by 2 runs, and one of their sluggers, DJ LeMahieu, tied it with a home run to right field. Then the bottom of the 9th comes around, right? And the former Cubs closer, Aroldis Chapman, was put in because he was with the Yankees, and he faced Jose Altuve with 2 outs. Now, Altuve hit a walk-off home run off of him, and it looked as if he knew he was going to pitch that slider. Here's the really angering part. Normally when players hit a walk-off home run, the players all meet up around home plate and they rip his jersey off, you know what I mean? And Jose Altuve, as he was running around the bases, told his teammates, "Do not rip off my jersey." That is enough probable cause that he was wearing a beeper.
Oh my God, yes, I think I remember seeing that in like the YouTube video I showed you about their cheating scandal. I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy.
I know. Yep.
Yeah. So hopefully people learn something very valuable from this podcast. And thank you, Harris, for coming on.
Yeah.
And giving us some very valuable information about MLB. And hope the Cubs win the World Series this year.
Absolutely, man. And don't forget, people who are watching, don't forget to subscribe.
Oh yeah, subscribe, like, share the audio, share the video. And we hope to have Harris back on soon.
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that video, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And click on the channel to check out some more awesome videos like our movie and wrestling debates and our interviews with people like the Wrestling Classic and Jordan Jomo from the IGWC. And we are definitely looking into delivering you all some more content in the near future, so definitely be on the lookout for that. And thank you for your support.